Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This is Ronald Johnson, Publitarian, coming at you again with another episode of Publitarian Podcast. Thank you for that intro, Mr. Announcer guy. That was really jazzy and smooth. Not like you at all. Very jazzy rendition of We Three Kings, continuing with our holiday music bumper at Publitarian Podcast. Thank you for tuning in. This is episode 31, and I'm going to be calling this Q and other letters of the alphabet. So I will be talking about the Q phenomenon. For those of you that do not know about Q, the full name was QAnon, and it originated a little over a year ago on a posting board called 4chan. If you're over 40, you probably don't know what that is. It's like a message board of sorts. It's where geeks did their social media before social media became a thing. You post on this forum, people can post back to you. It's where all the, shit posting and trolling originated. So, there is wide speculation of what QAnon is. The Q would harken back to clearance levels, like James Bond, Q, the guy that he would talk to. A Q is someone that has like the highest level of security clearance in our government. And the anon part is anonymous. So it's a high-level person in the United States government that's anonymous. And the movement has grown from being this person that's inside of the current White House to a group of people, or a global group of people, like a cabal for a force of good that's trying to take down the global elite. Sound like a conspiracy theory? Well, I'm going to let you make up your own mind on that before I weigh in. So the QAnon started posting around November 2017. Started dropping little breadcrumbs. And it's always, nothing is cut and dry. The Q stuff is just very breadcrumby. Like, it's very vague. You draw your own conclusions, that kind of thing. And Q, who is supposedly up in the higher echelons of our government, will post either random pictures proving that he or she is where they are in the government. Like, there was a famous picture of Donald Trump's signature with a pen and a paper and like a close-up of that. Like, that was the Q guy taking a picture. There is also speculation that Q is Donald Trump himself. Sometimes Q will tie himself to Donald Trump's tweets as proof that Q is real. And the Q posts are still going on to this day. One of the most recent ones that was posted was talking about how the Senate was going to shape up. And Q posted a number of 53/47. Well, in the United States Senate, it is now 53 Republican, 47 Democrat. Pretty uncanny, right? How can just some dude in the upper echelons of government know what the Senate numbers were going to be? And Q has rightly predicted some things that were going to happen. And Q has also been wrong, which just fuels the conspiracy on both sides. In one of the presidential State of the Union addresses, Q told us all that Donald Trump was going to begin his speech with, "My fellow Americans, a storm is coming." Obviously, the president did not start his State of the Union address as such, and that is a mark against Q. So I've given you one pro-Q and one anti-Q. The reason I thought I would talk about it on this podcast is because this is supposedly the week where the wheels really start to turn and the elitist government cabal starts being taken down. December 5th, U.S. Attorney John Huber expected to testify to House Oversight Subcommittee. So that's supposed to be the big thing that's happening. According to Q, this is going to be the thing that really starts the ball rolling. Huber's going to go up to the Hill, show all of his cards. The president may or may not declassify all of the Spygate information that would prove his innocence. James Comey, is going to testify soon. It's supposed to be a big week. And now, if you really, really go into conspiracy Q territory, George H.W. Bush was supposedly taken out. Crazy, wild speculation right now on what's happening on the Q front. Just to continue from the article that I mentioned, that is from The Hill, Mark Meadows. Representative Mark Meadows said Tuesday that House Republicans plan to hear testimony on December 5th from the prosecutor appointed by former Attorney General Jeff Sessions to probe alleged wrongdoing by the Clinton Foundation. So that's one piece of the puzzle. Meadows, who is chairman of the House Oversight Subcommittee on Government Operations, told Hill TV's Rising that it's time to circle back, quote unquote, to U.S. Attorney General John Huber's investigation with the Justice Department into whether the Clinton Foundation engaged any improper activities. So that's supposed to be happening. Comey is supposed to be testifying. James Comey, the former FBI director that appointed the special counsel, the witch hunter Bob Mueller that we have right now. James Comey is pushing very hard for a public hearing and what he is calling transparency. This way he gets to look like the guy that wants it all out there in the open. But what really happens is if you are testifying publicly and people besides the Senate committee can see it, then you can do this magic thing by claiming sources and methods, and you can redact pretty much anything from your statement in order to protect national security. And that's what James Comey's really wanting to do. So supposedly all of these loose pieces are flying together all at once this week, and this is going to be the supposed big week that Q justifies itself, himself, herself, and proves that they are right to the world. There's been so much that Q has gotten wrong. Again, so much that is gotten right as well. A lot of people believe that Q is a LARP, which stands for live action role play. It's just someone playing a game. And honestly, your humble tier 1 podcaster here doesn't know what to think. I'm kind of in the show me state at this point, where if you've got something and it happens, okay, I'll believe it. But until then, there's been too much. You could be devil's advocate and say some of that gets chalked up to human nature and you can't predict every path, but it's probably just somebody on the internet playing games. But the reason I'm throwing it out there is because this is going to be the big week that it's all supposed to come together and all the magic is supposed to happen and everything is going to start clicking. So if things happen in the timetable of this week, then your humble tier 1 podcaster will come back to you next week with an apology. I mean, hey, if Q is real, it's in my best interest that he's real, and it's in my best interest that I would be proven wrong. Because Q keeps saying over and over in their posts to trust the plan, quote unquote, and that basically Donald Trump and all of his trusty people that he has at the top have the entire globalist cabal situation well in hand. And they got this, and you don't need to worry about it. Just trust the plan and keep supporting your president. That's really nice, and you can have your cocoa and cookies and tuck yourself into bed, and that's a really nice thought. But there's been a lot to the contrary as well. So I guess we will find out this week to find out if Q is really this upper level badass that's in our government or just another letter of the alphabet. By the way, there's also a third option. Some people believe that Q is an AI and it's just compiling random facts, data, history, words, and just playing out this game with itself, kind of playing chess with itself. Pretty interesting theory as well. So when Q first started, it was a lot of posts that weren't as vague, and as time has marched on, Q has said, hey, the president's going to do this. It even predicted that Hillary Clinton would be detained somewhere, that the National Guard would be activated at some point to take care of this problem, that problem. We're like 60-something posts worth of this where none of this has happened. So as time has been marching on, the posts have been getting more and more vague, which lends to the theory of the one group that says Q isn't real. Now for the devil's advocate side, stuff that QAnon has predicted correctly. Well, it's really just more of along the lines of vague coincidences. What really gets happening is like numbers get assigned, and then people go, oh, look, those are the numbers that Q said. Or the president will put plus signs in one of his tweets, and Q drops something with plus signs in it right before the president tweeted. All of that kind of thing. But actual hardcore proof. And now, as my faithful listeners, if you have something to share, please, I'll put it in my next episode even. If you want to reach out to me, you can DM me on Instagram or publitarian@gmail.com or thepublitarian@gmail.com. But besides the numeric coincidences, like the Senate being 53 to 47, or Trump doing plus signs and Q dropping something with plus signs minutes before, there's just too many vague avenues to really hone in and call something an accurate prediction, or nothing that I have seen anyway. Do we want it to be a real thing? Yeah, because that means that, somebody's looking out for us and somebody's taking care of us. But as conservatives, libertarians, free thinkers, at the end of the day, we really got to look out for ourselves. Nobody is our messiah, and we always have to stay vigilant. Having said that, I do think President Trump's doing a great job, but at the end of the day, he's a human being like everybody else. And I've talked about that before on my other podcasts. Q's speculations, or the fuel has been added to the fire because of what's happening with the Spygate controversy right now. Supposedly Robert Mueller is wrapping up his investigation, but we've been told that for a year by both sides of the aisle. And now, supposedly, the deep state is in a panic, and this is going to be the week that everybody cuts deals and everybody cuts and runs, and this is what Q has been saying in their posts. So I think, as even the most faithful Q lover would say, like, if things don't start popping this week, then that would be the end of Q for any rational human being anyway. But in my humble opinion, at the end of the day, I think there's been too much wrong and not really enough 100% factual correctly right. Like I said, I cannot research or find any examples of the 100% right. And if any of my listeners has some, please feel free to share it, because I've seen more wrong than right. So that's what's going on with the Q thing. So this will be the big week. So if things happen, then I will be happy to admit that I was incorrect about Q. But if they don't, then we move on. I'm more concerned about voter fraud than I am anything else, but I already did an entire podcast episode about that. But before I wrap up things today, I would like to get to some real hard-hitting stuff, so let's do some news that matters.
And now, news that matters.
That's right, news that matters, and this is so relevant, so important. Oh, and also, it's so idiotic, and it's not safe for the little ears, so if your kids are listening, you may want to skip the next few minutes. There's my public service announcement. From the UK Mirror. Transgender woman who, quote, broke penis, end quote, after lover died during sex, tries to sue his wife. That's right, you heard it here first, folks. Breaking news. The transgender lover said she was hired by the wife to sleep with her husband for his 60th birthday. Jeremy Kyle may have its fair share of dramas, but a courtroom show has thrown up something even more unpredictable. Casa Cerrado, which means case closed, has featured the story of a transgender woman who broke her penis when the man she was sleeping with died during the act. Jennifer, who still has her male genitalia, had been hired by Sylvia to sleep with her husband for his 60th birthday, when he died midway through. She appeared on the show to sue Sylvia for around £16,000. Jennifer told the show's host, Ana Maria Pollo, "After we had sex, he said I didn't fully fulfill his fantasy. His real fantasy was that he wanted me to penetrate him. So I had sex with him and he liked it. I didn't think it was his first experience of that kind." Jennifer said Miguel, Sylvia's husband, suffered a heart attack and died. After Miguel had died, she called police and ambulance, who burst into the room as Jennifer tried to cover herself with a sheet. Jennifer was only freed after she arrived at the hospital and said she had suffered a fractured penis. Ana Maria ruled that Jennifer should only be paid the money promised by Sylvia, around £4,000. So there you have it, folks. News that matters. So I think that will do it for me for this week. We will find out finally what happens with the Q business at the end of the week, and I'll report back here next week. In the meantime, thank you for tuning in and listening to this podcast. As I predicted, my last episode did low amounts of downloads. I knew it was either going to be a really big winner or a really big loser. The gaming, nerding, ranting, social justice stuff usually goes over people's heads, and that's fine. But hey, it's my podcast. I wanted to talk about it, and here we are. So I will talk to you guys next week on Publitarian Podcast. Like I said, if you have any good stuff to send me about where Q's been right, you can email me, publitarian@gmail.com or thepublitarian@gmail.com, or you can DM me on Instagram. As always, I am on all the social medias as Publitarian. Twitter, Minds, FreeZoxy, that's the new one, Gab.ai, Twitter, Facebook. But the big main one I'm on, obviously, is Instagram and here at Publitarian Podcast. So we will talk to you guys next week. Thank you very much.
Publitarian Podcast. Copyright 2020.